Is it time to panic about the state of BYU's wide receiver position with Jojo Phillips now on the shelf for the foreseeable future and other guys already on the mend? The hope is that those reinforcements are on the way soon.
You are Locked On Cougars, your daily podcast on the BYU Cougars, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? Welcome into Locked On Cougars, your daily podcast focused on the BYU Cougars. I'm Jake Hatch, executive producer of the KSL Sports Zone in Salt Lake City, Utah, and a 14-year credentialed media member at BYU. I am your resident expert and insider, your host here on this podcast. And as always, thank you for making Locked On Cougars your first listen of the day. All right, coming up on today's show, Jojo Phillips underwent surgery on a broken clavicle, it appears, and that leaves BYU's wide receiver position pretty darn thin. We'll examine what the answer is as they go into a bye week here. Then we're going to catch up with a guy on the other side of the football who is responsible for covering some of those receivers. That's Tommy Prassas. Now, due to injury, he's been asked to play a new position at nickelback for BYU and Jay Hill's defense. He'll explain what he hopes in his new role and why he has embraced it so wholeheartedly. Then we'll finish up today's show with the to-do list for BYU during this bye week, what they need to get done to make sure that they are ready for the next set of games, obviously starting off with East Carolina next week. It's all brought to you today by our friends over at FanDuel. New customers can bet just $5, and if your first $5 bet hits, you get $300 in bonus bets courtesy of your friends over at FanDuel. Go to FanDuel.com to get started today. All right. So, Jojo Phillips revealed last night he underwent surgery for what appears to be a broken clavicle. If you're watching this on YouTube, I just threw up the picture he posted on X or Twitter, and that is a bandage on what appears to be his left shoulder. And any of you who watched him during the game last week against Stanford had a pretty good first half, and then at the end of the halftime period, all of a sudden he comes walking out of the tunnel, no pads on, his arm is in a sling, and you're like, ooh, what happened here? Well, I went back through the game tape and I dug up this. And if you're watching this on YouTube, you'll be able to see the video of when exactly it appears that Jojo Phillips got injured and what exactly happened. So here you go. So as you see, the play, I still suffer some of the ill effects from that. But to his everlasting credit, that young man, as you probably saw in that clip, went right back as BYU was going with some of their hurry up in a 2-minute offense scenario and got right back on the line while reaching up towards his collarbone area, kind of being like, oh, probably doesn't feel very comfortable. He probably knew that something was wrong. He ran the very next play still and then finally exited the game. That's toughness. He easily could have been tapping his helmet saying, hey, get me out of here, or could have stayed on the field and said, hey, I need some help, get the trainers out there, help him off the field that way. But to his credit, he popped up, got back in formation, ran the route on the next play to the best of his ability, and then finally exited the game. And now it appears to be on the shelf for the foreseeable future. Now, I did some Google research on this. I just simply Googled how long does it take athletes who undergo surgery for a broken clavicle? Does it take to come back? And it says 6 to 8 weeks, they can begin light activities, kind of working their way back up to full fitness. That does not mean playing football, because as they mentioned, full contact and the full recovery of the bone, etc., takes a full 3 months. So we're looking at this. I'm recording this on the night of September 8th. Most of you will watch and or listen to this the morning or afternoon of September 9th. Well, if you do the math, September, October, November, December. Is he out for the remainder of the regular season? Sure appears that it could be that. The hope is that that timeline is much shorter than what the internet is telling me. But like I said, I looked through a number of different things online about surgery for clavicles and the recovery windows, and they'll kind of line up that full mobility, full contact type clearance takes 3 months as that bone fully gets healed and the doctors trust that you're not going to re-injure it on the first hit that you take. So that is really, really unfortunate if he is set to miss the remainder of the regular season. And the small sliver of good news in regards to that, if he does miss the rest of the regular season, he can easily apply for medical hardship and get that year of eligibility back. That is the one thing you can keep in your back pocket here with regards to him having only played 2 games this season, but still, it leaves a hole in BYU's wide receiver lineup because he, speaking of Jojo Phillips, by yours truly, and I think a number of you out there in Cougar Nation, he was expected to be the number 2, the Robin to Chase Roberts Batman at wide receiver for BYU. The talk all training camp long from Aaron Roderick and others that are obviously in the know, we're talking about Jojo Phillips, Chase Roberts, and Parker Kingston kind of being BYU's top trio at wide receiver. And now you're scrambling to find an answer to make sure that you have adequate bodies, because if you've been paying attention, they still are without Reggie Frischneck, the transfer from Weber State and Snow College. He has been out since training camp due to a lingering leg injury. If I recall, it was a hamstring is what it was described as. And then also Tei Nakua, a guy that many have been expecting to see break out this season. He's also been on the shelf. And I believe Aaron Roderick said it's been a hamstring for him as well. Well, the hope is you get those bodies back, those two guys back as soon as possible, because those are guys you need now to help fill that role. Parker Kingston takes on a bigger role now. You're obviously going to look at Cody Hagen, because I think this is the door that opens for Cody Hagen to really ascend to that number 2 spot. Parker, for everything that he is, he's more of a slot receiver and better suited to that role. He's not a true out-and-out X or Z, which is exactly what I think Cody Hagen will be and should be in this offense. So Chase Roberts obviously takes on an extra load. I don't think he's going to mind that one bit. He wants nothing more than to see as many targets, to produce as much as he can at BYU in what appears to be his final season. But then also Tiger Bachmeier. You got to hope that he gets back soon. One other guy I forgot to mention who's also on the shelf right now, LaMason Waller. He celebrated his birthday earlier this week, if I recall correctly, but happy birthday to him. But he also underwent surgery during training camp, and he's on the shelf. So if you're keeping track at home, there are currently 4 guys in BYU's wide receiving core who are on the mend. 2 of them we know had surgery in Mason Waller, as well as Jojo Phillips. And then obviously the return windows for both Reggie Frischneck and Tei Nakua are unknown, specifically, at least on the outside of this football program. So that leaves a unit that BYU has been counting on to really make up for some of the inexperience that Bear Bachmeier has at quarterback. Pretty darn thin. And that's unfortunate, because honestly, you're hoping that BYU's wide receiving core was going to be pretty darn good this year. But look at it this way. Chase Roberts is obviously your out-and-out number 1. I think Cody Hagen easily assumes that number 2 role. I think if you want to count it as the number 3 or the slot position, that's Parker Kingston's. But then beyond that, you're looking at guys like Rowan Ray, Keila Keone, who was a guest on this podcast. It was a little bit of an unknown, but now we know him. Tiger Bachmeier. He expected, I'm sure, to take on a bigger role and would love nothing more than to catch as many passes from his younger brother as possible. And then Trey Roberts, a walk-on younger brother of Chase Roberts, probably gets a boost up the depth chart alongside guys like Dominique McKenzie as well. Dom, obviously the son of former BYU running back Brian McKenzie, had a really nice touchdown run against Portland State. Well, he's going to be figuring to use his track speed to greater effect now with some of these guys on the lam. And the hope is that they're back. I probably shouldn't use the term the lam, but you get what I'm talking about. On the mend is probably the better term. But to get them back healthy, and until then, it's a pretty thin unit, and that's unfortunate. But the other differentiator here is that the tight end position for BYU is well stocked. Carson Ryan figures to see more targets now. You got to be thinking if you're guys like Kean Need, who we have seen with the first team offense, Ethan Erickson. Also, we've also seen, who am I thinking of? Noah Moyaki, who have also taken first team reps in game. They've all got to be thinking, hey, Bear, look my way. It's going to be a team effort to fill that gap, and I don't think there's a ready-made answer for it. But the nice part is there are bodies there, and the hope is that those bodies that are still available, the guys who are healthy and have the availability right now, step up and fill those roles until, as I mentioned, the reinforcements come back in Reggie Frischneck, Tei Nakua, and hopefully LaMason Waller, and fingers crossed that timeline I read online for a guy like Jojo Phillips is a little bit shorter than 3 months, but we'll see how it all plays out. But it's unfortunate that wide receiver position has taken another hit at a position that, as I mentioned, was looking at as being a critical cog in the success BYU hoped to have this season. But the nice part is, when in doubt, look for number 2. Get it to Chase Roberts. He is proven to be a very, very dependable option at wide receiver. All right, coming up next, we're going to catch up with a guy on the opposite side of the football who's actually responsible for covering guys like a Parker Kingston or a tight end, the caliber of Carson Ryan. That's Tommy Prassas. He has stepped up into a role that he was wholly unfamiliar with before going into training camp this year, but he's embraced it wholeheartedly. What has led to his success so far this season? He explains that next in an exclusive conversation right here on Locked On Cougars. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at 5 Hour Energy. If you're out on the course, you need a little extra push to power through your day. 5 Hour Energy's Transfusion delivers the clubhouse flavor you love without ever leaving the green. The best part is all of us have had some crazy shots in our life. I can tell you, my younger brother holed out from 150 yards at one time, and then the very next hole clubbed the ball off of the 150-yard pole and shot it right back at himself. You'll never see that combo replicated, but that's the thing about golf. It's all about good times, good people, and good flavors. The grape ginger lime flavor of 5 Hour Energy Transfusion gives you the best parts of your clubhouse go-to without leaving the course or chasing down the beverage cart. Now you can amp up the fun even more. Just buy, snap, and enter for your chance to win a dream golf trip for two to any golf tournament in the USA. That's a pretty awesome deal, my friends. Tee up that trip. Visit 5hewin.com for full rules and entry. No purchase is necessary. It does exclude the Masters, so it's unfortunate there. That contest does end October 31st. Once again, go to 5-h-e-win.com for full rules and entry and get started today with our friends over at 5 Hour Energy. Today's show is also brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. Now, FanDuel is here with the NFL season ongoing and is making sure you are ready for kickoff with can't-miss offers. The best part is right now, new customers bet just $5, and if your bets wins, you get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app, however you want to do it. The best part about FanDuel is if it's however you want to bet. Player props, building a same game parlay, you want to bet live time, you like money line, no matter what you're into. They've got the options for you guys, and the best part is quick, easy, and it's the best way to add a little more energy to your Sundays, and it makes every game more exciting, whether you're watching your favorite team or you're keeping an eye on that fantasy lineup all weekend long. So you're ready to play fantasy football with our friends, or not fantasy football, but you're ready to play with our friends over at FanDuel. Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. And if it hits, once again, $300 in your account. It's all courtesy of your friends over at FanDuel. Thank you once again for making Locked On Cougars your first listen of the day. Hope you all are doing fantastic out there. Thank you for all your support of the podcast. Kind of thank you guys enough for being with us every single day. I like to call you everydayers because, as we say here on the Locked On Podcast Network, it is your team every day. And I do want to give a shout out to listener Chad down in Las Vegas. Now, Chad is the brother of a coworker of mine, Clay, and apparently Chad is a big time Cougar fan, whereas Clay is a Ute. So they got a little family rivalry going on, but apparently Chad is a true everydayer and supporting the podcast. So Chad, I wanted to give a little bit of shout out and keep giving your brother Clay a little crap for me. All right. Nonetheless, let's talk BYU football, and let's talk with Tommy Prassas. Now, many of you have probably heard the name for multiple years now about Prassas, and he's been a guy that BYU's called upon multiple times at free safety and at strong safety. But midway through training camp earlier this year, BYU found itself with a major question mark at its nickelback spot. Now, in Jay Hill's defense, the base alignment is a 4-down-3 linebacker alignment, but in this day and age of college football, the 4-2-5 with the fifth defensive back there being a nickelback has become really, really critical to success to combat spread offenses. Well, BYU is counting on Jonathan Cabea, who looked the part at that spot. Then he gets injured and had to undergo surgery, and he's on the shelf for the time being. Well, they had to look at other options, and they tried a number of different guys. I know that we saw at one point during the media availability, we saw guys like Tavion Beasley, Cannon DeVries all get opportunities at that spot. But Jay decided to call upon one of his safeties and put Tommy Prassas at that spot. And to Tommy's credit, he embraced it. He's absolutely owned it. And so far, so good in terms of the overall productions. Has he had some mistakes? Absolutely. But who doesn't on the football field? He's playing a brand new position. He was kind of thrust into, and to his credit, as I mentioned, he's kind of taken it on headlong and really has embraced this being his new home. And I had a chance to catch up with him at practice last week to talk about that and what he hopes to accomplish at both, in this case, nickelback and probably down the line back at safety. But here's that exclusive chat with Tommy Prassas right here on Locked On Cougars. What's been your overall impression as you make a position change?
I'd say overall it's, not that crazy. Just more man coverage on slots. And sorry, everybody walking by.
They're clowning on you. I get it.
Yeah, it's just more man coverage on slots and just playing closer to the line of scrimmage, get to doing more like blitzing, playing low hold coverages, and yeah.
When it comes to that, you played safety, and obviously you're covering guys as a responsibility in that, but what's it like having to go up against guys almost every play in that respect now?
Yeah, no, I think it's definitely a competition for real. Like, just a lot more action, I'd say. And it's more fun. It's one-on-one battles every play, and you kind of get to test your skills against other, good competition. So I love it.
What was the conversation like when Coach Hill approached you and said, hey, we need to see if you can maybe move up a position?
Yeah. I've been training all offseason with the corners and doing more corner technique stuff and kind of working my man coverage and low zone coverages. So I kind of was prepared going into camp, and I kind of maybe expected it, but then there's been some injuries in the nickel room, so I wasn't surprised. But I was happy he said that because starting, be on the field and making plays and just getting in my groove is just nothing better.
Was that kind of the mindset, like you just wanted to find a way onto the field? Yeah,
I think I definitely contribute to the team, and we'll be able to make plays on the field, and I can't do that on the bench. So
now, when you're operating at two different positions, 'cause I know you're still working some at safety, make sure you're staying engaged there. How difficult can that be to have a mindset of, hey, I need to play safety in one circumstance, but all of a sudden flip mindset and play up at the nickelback spot?
Yeah, I'd say in the beginning it was more difficult because our nickel and strong are opposite of each other, so it's it kind of was confusing me for the first couple weeks of camp, but then right now I've got it down, so I've got I'm in my groove and I know the difference and I know how to flip it to nickel and strong or free.
What is your chief strength, you think, of that nickel spot?
I just think my overall knowledge of the game. I take pride in preparing against opponents, and I feel like I know what they're going to do before they even snap the ball or an idea of what they could do. So my ability to just pounce on routes and make plays or even play man coverage in low holes, just because strong safety is basically the same thing. So I already had experience there, and now just being able to showcase my talents in man coverage is just awesome.
How good can this defense be, in your opinion?
Best defense in the country.
I like that. I like the bold declaration there. Why? What gives you that confidence? Because it was a pretty good defense last year.
I mean, Coach Hill hasn't changed. He's the GOAT, and we've got playmakers all around the field. Our linebacking core is amazing. Our D-line's, top tier, and our DBs make plays. So I'm not really worried about we have no flaws. I think we're gonna, be great again this year.
How different is it this year having some guys up front like a Keanu Tanuvasa? How much does that make a difference in your opinion?
Yeah, no, I think going into this offseason, a big factor was to get better against the run defense, and he does that for us. Him, JT, Kirk, when he gets back, all of them, they're going to plug the holes up in there, and they're going to have to pass, and we're going to make plays. So yeah.
You get a front row seat when you're playing that nickel spot alongside guys like Isaiah Glasker and Jack Kelly. How much better are they in your opinion?
Yeah, no, they're high draft picks in my eyes. They're going to be great. We're obviously going to ball out this year, but they're going to be great in the league. They're amazing players.
In your heart of hearts, do you want to stick at nickel long term, or do you care?
I mean, I think it's ultimately wherever Coach feels like he needs me and wherever I'm going to go make plays. But I'm loving nickel right now.
Yeah.
I like it. It's just a lot more action, getting the blitz, getting the cover, just really everything. And I like being able to showcase my talents in there.
Last thing for me is when you work, because if I'm mistaken, nickel, you work with Gennaro, is that correct?
Yeah.
So what's it like working between Coach Hill and Coach Guilford to have that back and forth?
I think it's great. I think being able to be in the meeting rooms with Coach Hill and Eddie Hecker's also back.
Yeah.
So being able to, pick his brain, because he is not long out the game. So being able to pick his brain and then also being able to come here into practice and be individual drills with Coach Guilford and working my technique and picking his brain as well. It's really good. It's awesome, to be honest.
Well, I want to ask you about Eddie real quick. I completely forgot that he was around. What has he been most instrumental in? Just his experience factor? Can he point to exactly what to do on any given play?
Yeah. No, I think just his overall experience. I think he's been able to. I've watched film several times with him, just one-on-one, and just trying to pick his brain and see it how he sees it, because he sees it very similar to Coach Hill, but he played it. So at Weber and here, so he's been able to help me with the zone coverages, seeing offenses are doing, how I could fix my technique in certain ways, and yeah, it's been great to have him.
A big thank you to Tommy Prassas for taking the time to join us here on the podcast. And I think he's got the right mindset when it comes to it. He's able to obviously show off his athleticism. He's got above average athleticism. He's long, he's rangy, and more importantly than that, he is absolutely studying his guts out to be as good as he possibly can be. You heard him talk about the fact he's working with guys like Gennaro Guilford and obviously Jay Hill as a safeties coach. Those are two guys that are going to get you coached up about as well as anybody inside the BYU football program. And if they can't get the most out of you, I'm not sure that anybody else in that program is going to get anything out of you or anything more out of you than they will. Because I absolutely think they are two of BYU's best position coaches, but more importantly, talent developers inside that football program. And I really do think that Tommy Prassas, he'll hold down the fort. Now, we'll see with Jonathan Cabea if and when he gets back, if he takes that spot right back from Tommy Prassas. But I'd be hard-pressed to think that Prassas is going to be willing to step aside and say, you take that spot back. I'm going to go back to safety and compete for playing time there. He wants to be on the field, as you heard him talk about, and I can respect that because these guys are competitors. They want nothing more than to be as successful as they possibly can be. But beyond that, they also just want to play the game they love. And too often, when you're a backup, you don't get to play the reps that you want. And that can be tough to stomach. So I can appreciate that Tommy embraced playing this nickel spot. And I wish him the absolute best as he moves forward here because it's a critical role and a critical cog in BYU's defense under Jay Hill. And he's got to succeed at a high level if BYU also wants to succeed at a high level. So big thank you once again to Tommy for taking the time to join us here on the podcast, and looking forward to seeing his continued success going forward here as a member of the BYU football program. All right. We'll finish up today's show coming up next. We talked a little bit about what Kalani Sitake wants to do with the passing game, working a guy like Bear Bachmeier in practice this week, but there's more for BYU on their to-do list during this off week. It's early on in the season, but Kalani Sitake says it's not going to be a week that they're just going to hang out, eat bonbons, and celebrate the good times. No, they're getting to work, and he'll explain exactly what he hopes to accomplish, and he'll do that next right here on Locked On Cougars. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at Game Time. College football is back, obviously, and we all couldn't be more excited. Tailgates, rivalries, energy in the stands, there's nothing like, but let's be real, actually getting tickets can feel like more of a battle than the game itself. Endless queues, hitting fees, and prices jumping at checkout. That's why I want to encourage you guys to use what I use, and that's Game Time. It's the app that gives the advantage back to fans. It's the easiest way to score last-minute tickets at the best prices with no surprise fees. What you see is what you pay in the app. There's nothing being tacked on at the end, and the best part is the app makes it super simple. You can see exactly what your view from your seat will be before you buy. They also have zone deals. You pick the section, Game Time picks the seats, and you save big along the way. And honestly, it's faster, cheaper, and less stressful than any other way I have bought tickets in the past. I can attest to that. So guess we're got to buying your tickets and do it with Game Time. Download the Game Time app today, create an account, and use the promo code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's the promo code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today. Thank you once again for making Locked On Cougars your first listen of the day. All right, if you have not signed up for the Locked On Cougars Insider Group, get the inside scoop on everything I'm hearing about BYU sports and get it right in your phone. It comes directly to you in the form of a text message. Join the group today. It's $5 a month to be a part of the group, but more important than that, a kicker, as I like to call it, get a 14-day free trial, 2 full weeks before you're charged a single penny. It's our way to see if it's worth your while. So join us today. Link is in the show notes below, or reach out to us via email or social media, and we'll get you squared away as a member of the Locked On Cougars Insider Group. All right, so Kalani Sitake has been very adamant. He was very adamant yesterday in saying that BYU's not going to rest on its laurels this week. Now, they have an early bye week. It's just it's a weird quirk of the schedule. I know in their heart of hearts, they likely would have been playing this week because 2 games is really kind of a tough thing to play. 2 games, shut it down for a week, and they get back after it. But the biggest thing is, in some ways, it's an opportunity for BYU to kind of look back on their successes and failures from the past 2 games, work on it, and hopefully come out on the other side a little bit better and none worse for the wear. Well, Kalani Sitake said that despite their success early on this season, where they're a fringe top 25 team right now, they're 2-0. They've absolutely dominated their opponents. The defense is the best scoring defense in the entire country, allowing an average of 1.5 points per game. They are absolutely lights out on the defensive side of the football. There's still some work to do on offense, obviously, but Kalani Sitake, here is what he envisions it will be the plan for this week when it comes to the bye week and what he hopes to accomplish overall as a football program.
Well, we want to still keep in the rhythm of our offense and defense. I mean, we knew about this bye a long time ago, so we prepped for it. So we know what we're going to do practice, and we also can't just it can't be like a regular work week where you guys get some wear and tear. I mean, you've got to do enough, but you to keep to keep on top of it and keep consistent. But then at the same time, we still want to gain our legs back and get fresh. And so the balance will be everybody's different at different levels. So I don't know if the starters will have the same same type of week as the backups. And so it all depends. We still have guys that are still developing in the program. So it's hard for me to lump it all into one. But if I'm talking about the starters, it definitely will be work, but not as much work as we had last week. But we still need some things to improve on. So we'll do whatever it takes to get better as a team. But that means that this week's got to be important. It's not a week off.
I love the mindset. It is a work week. It is not a time for guys to lollygag, to mess around. He also said that you want to get the starters their work, but also not beat them up to the point where they go into East Carolina next week, cross-country travel and the like, where they're feeling the grind. No, you want to keep them as fresh as possible. And some of the dings and dents BYU absorbed in their first two games, it's an opportunity for these guys to heal up, because after East Carolina, it gets real. It's the Big 12 schedule, and it kicks off at Colorado. Then you're home to West Virginia. Then you're at an upstart in Arizona. And then the gauntlet, the 4-game gauntlet, Utah, Iowa State, Texas Tech, TCU. It's going to test BYU severely over the next 5, 6, 7, 8 games, and they've got to be ready for it. So they got to use this week very, very wisely. And you heard Kalani talk about the fact that they've made plans for this. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of work put in, but at the same time, make sure guys feel as fresh as they possibly can be as they get ready for that cross-country trek out to Greenville, South Carolina, to take on ECU. And I'm looking forward to that game, because I think ECU, just kind of an early thought on this, is it Katenhauser? He is absolutely lighting it up throwing the football. And that is the one thing that ECU will do in this game. They're going to test BYU secondary. You heard us talk with a guy like Tommy Prassas earlier on in today's podcast. If you missed that, go back and watch it. The thing about it is Tommy has a critical role as a nickelback, and in the air raid / spread offense that ECU is going to feature with Hauser at the helm of it, they throw the ball all over the yard. And BYU's secondary linebackers, their coverage units, are going to be severely tested in this game. It's a great opportunity in this circumstance to sit back, look at their game plan, speaking of ECU, and get a better feel for what you expect, and also be able to watch ECU as they play this weekend as well, and hopefully have a little better idea of what to expect as you make that trek out there to face off against the Pirates. But the other side of it is that Kalani Sitake has one other thing that his staff in particular is going to be doing. He won't be doing it because you have a limit on the amount of visits you can make as a head coach, and usually hold on to those till later in the year. And in fact, if I'm not mistaken, I think the month of September is still off limits for head coaches to make off-campus recruiting visits, but doesn't mean that his staff isn't going to fan out across the country. And that's exactly what they're going to do. They're going to visit, obviously, their committed prospects. They got a number of high school prospects who have already committed to the football program. You want to go see them wherever they're playing, love them up, and make sure that they're appreciated by the BYU staff. But more important than that, it's a great opportunity to build inroads in the recruiting window right now when other programs have to worry about game week and the like. So it's a little bit of an advantage for BYU to have this early bye week. Like I said, I think they'd rather be playing football, but they're making the best of it. And Kalani Sitake explains exactly what he expects from his staff as they fan out across the country later this week for recruiting visits.
Yeah, we'll be doing that too. So you're going to see our coaches getting out and seeing our guys. It's just hard because we have a bunch of guys that we want to see, and not all as much time as we can. Right now, you're limited to how many coaches you can send out at one time right now, but we'll take advantage of as much as we can and try to go see our future Cougs out there.
Well, keep an eye out at the local high school football game you might be at this coming weekend, because if you've got a BYU recruit or commit that is playing in said game, there's a decent chance that an assistant coach for BYU might be on hand, loving them up and obviously watching them, getting some in-person evaluation and the like. I told you guys on yesterday's podcast, for those of you who are everydayers, that Legend Glasgow, Devon Eka, PJ Taki, and the rest of the Lehigh Pioneers had both coaches from BYU and Utah at that game last Friday. Well, guess what? That's just a smattering of just a kind of a small microcosm of what you'll see this weekend as coaches literally will fan out from Hawaii all the way to the East Coast to make sure that they see those players. They're the future Cougars, as Kalani talked about them, and make sure they feel the love from this BYU staff. So that's going to do it for us on today's show. Hope you guys are feeling the love as well as everydayers here on the podcast. Cannot thank you guys enough for your continued support of the show. It's an absolute pleasure to do it. And listeners like Chad, who I shouted out earlier today, they're the reason why I do what I do. There's thousands of you out there in Cougar Nation. I said stretching from sea to shining sea and all the way into the islands of the Pacific. I know some of you out there in Hawaii. I know my good friend Glenn's been over in the Philippines for a while. Number of you supporting us literally worldwide. I think who else was like we've got guys in Hong Kong who've reached out, New Zealand. The support, it reaches globally, and that's obviously a connection that BYU has with the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints being a worldwide church. But more important than that, thank you, truthfully, for all y'all support. I cannot do it without you guys. So please continue to subscribe, rate and review, share this with your family and friends. And as always, thank you for making Locked On Cougars your first listen of the day. And we will catch you guys tomorrow, as you all are, hopefully, everydayers right here on the Locked On Cougars podcast.